to talk about Yaya. He's obviously leaving us. He left us. It was another emotional goodbye after Zabaletta's the year before. Could you sum up what Yaya means to you as a chairman and has meant to the club?
Yaya is a legend for this club. There is no question about that. I think what Yaya has achieved, I look back at these 8 years he's been with us, is unbelievable. He came at a time when I think most people didn't appreciate where this club was going. He was a big player for us. You look back at our 2012 Premier League and our 2014, particularly Premier League. I mean, Yaya was incredible. I mean, he was the main driver in these competitions. You look at the FA Cup, our first FA Cup back in 2011. I mean, Yaya has been instrumental to this journey and to what we've been able to achieve in this era. And I think I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful on behalf of Sheikh Mansour. I'm very thankful on behalf of everybody that's part of this club and this organization, to Yaya and his family for what they've given this club. He will always be remembered and he will always have a place here. I wish him all the luck in whatever decision he decides to take in his next step.
And while we're talking about legends and someone who's been here for 10 years, Vincent Kompany made a comeback of his own this season. How comforting was it for you to see him back leading the team and back on the pitch for more minutes?
Vincent is massive for us. Vincent is our captain. Vincent is our backbone in defense. And Vincent over the last 10 years has been key to everything. And I know how hard it has been for him. It's been hard for him physically, but it's also hard for him personally and mentally. But he's a very strong character. He's a strong leader with an unbelievable personality and ability to handle these challenges. And the way he's come back this year, the way I think you look at the last 2 months of the season, he's been arguably the best defender in the world.
And he speaks a lot of sense. He might not always say what board members are thinking or even agree with them, but is that something you appreciate from a...
Well, I appreciate honesty. I appreciate honesty always, and I appreciate leadership. And Vincent has both. So absolutely, he should speak his mind always because it comes from the heart, and he's genuine, and I appreciate that always.
And so Vincent's future with the group or Manchester City, how would you see that panning out? Have you spoken to him about it? Because would the same happen with Vincent that happened with Patrick maybe if he wants to go down that route?
You know, I haven't spoken to Vincent about what he will do after football. Hopefully he still has more years to play at this highest level. This is a decision Vincent has to take at the right time for him. But whenever that time comes for Vincent, I'll be there for him.
Could be a football manager or a politician, I think.
He could be anything. He's got the character, he's got the personality. I think he could be anything he wants to.
So, away from the pitch now, we mentioned 10 years. It's 10 years since the takeover. Anything special planned?
We will continue to through this journey. I mean, yes, it's 10 years, and that's great, and I'm certainly very excited about what's been accomplished over the last 10 years. Particularly this year, if you think about it, what a way to celebrate 10 years.
It'd be hard to top.
Absolutely. But I think this is a long-term plan. His Highness Sheikh Mansour is committed to this club in the long term, and this journey continues. And now it's about the next 10 years, continuing in the way we've been working with a strategy, with a clear vision and direction, and then with an execution plan.
I mean, I think as a fan and an employee, I think celebrate is the right word, because I think we should celebrate. Because people said it wouldn't last, and everyone in Abu Dhabi would get bored with Manchester City.
Well, I remember many years ago when I used to hear a lot of that. It won't last, it's unsustainable, it's financially unfeasible, they're not going to be successful, they cannot unseat the big powers in the Premier League, they won't be able to compete in the Champions League. I've heard all of that. I've heard it time and time again. But I knew it could be done. We had the right people involved in this, obviously with the support of the fans, the commitment of the fans. I think I have to mention that. The fans were unbelievable. We're always immense. We wouldn't be able to be where we are today if it wasn't for the fans' support. At no point over the last 10 years did I feel for a second that the fans weren't 100% behind the ownership and behind this project. And I think without that, things would have been far more difficult. And Manchester City has been the most successful club in English football in the last 7 years. And that's because of everything I've said combined. That doesn't work. It's not just about investing and spending money. It's about everything. Everything has to work together in a comprehensive way. Everybody has to row in the same direction to achieve success.
And there's a genuine sense of excitement about what the next 10 years may bring. You're very interwoven now with the Manchester City Council on several projects in East Manchester. And I've actually seen some of the plans, and my team back in Manchester have seen some of the plans, and they were open-mouthed at what may happen on the campus in future years. Is there anything you can tell us about that, and how excited are you about that?
I'm very excited, but I'm also very confident. We're no longer talking about promises. We have a track record. I think we've said and we've done what we've said, and you see it in every facet from the first time we set foot in Manchester, from the first commitment to build the academy, from the first commitment to support this organization and this team, to every other project we've been involved in. I'd like to think that we've always been consistent in not over-promising and always delivering. And then to maintain, and I think this is one of the things that I hope we are careful in maintaining, because that's a very important part of Manchester City and this organization and everybody involved with this club. Maintain humbleness. We have to stay humble. This is a humble team. The origins of this club is always humble. I'd like to think the way we've acted throughout these years has been humble. I hope they will see us as being close to the club, close to the fans, and humble in our failures and humble in our success. So,
I mean, it's been fairly easy on the pitch, if that's not an exaggeration this year.
No, I mean...
but how tough has it been financially, though, to sustain that kind of success for the club? I mean, great footballers need paying for.
You know, we've built the foundation in the first 5 years. I think the first 5 years were the heavy investment years, 5 to 6 years, until we got to ourselves to a particular threshold where we're able to essentially reinvest in this club and continue to operate in a financially sustainable way. Today, we are a profitable organization. Our revenues continue to grow in a positive way. We see a very positive environment on the commercial side, and we see it ourselves as Manchester City. The demand for this club in terms of partnership and sponsoring is higher than it's ever been. I mean, we are setting new benchmarks in every deal we discuss right now. It's a joy. I remember the years, 5 or 6 years ago. Well, let's start 9 years ago. When it was a very difficult conversation. It was a hard sell. It was a sell on promise. Many of the major, I would say, sponsors, it was a big, tough sell for us. Well, we've gone a long way now. We're achieving commercial agreements and sponsoring agreements that continue to grow at a very fast pace. So we are certainly in a completely different place from a commercial perspective. I mean, if you look at our partnership this year with Amazon, I mean that's a market entry, a new market entry for Amazon. It is a great partnership. I think we had at the beginning a very good deal. I think they've had an unbelievable deal now. I have no idea how it's going to end up, but I can tell you, given what I've seen and given the season we've had, I think, and given the quality that Amazon has on the production side, I think this is going to be an incredible series, and it's going to be a great success. I have no doubt for Amazon and obviously for us.
Can we talk a little bit for a while on women's football? Not the trophies to show for this year, but another Champions League semi-final for Manchester City's women. 3,000 people, I think, at the semi-final. How do you assess their growth and where women's football is at the moment?
Well, I think you can assess their growth on 3 different parameters. One is obviously the footballing side. how is this game evolving, how is it improving, how is the quality of players growing. And I think here we're seeing progress continuously in the game. Second parameter is the demand from the fans. Our fans going to these games. Is there a growth in that space? We've had 3,000 people attend the semi-final against Lyon. And that, that tells you there's a growing demand for this. The fans are appreciating the women's game, and it shows you it's a growing sport. And the third parameter is sponsors. Are we able to attract sponsors to support this sport? In the beginning, it was, an investment by the club, and now more and more that investment is being supported with sponsors.
I mean, would you hope that eventually all Premier League men's teams have women's teams? Would that be the ideal?
I think this is where it should be going. I believe ultimately, there's a responsibility that all of us, I think, in the Premier League should have jointly in respecting the women's game, supporting the women's game, and making that competition more competitive.
And away from that also, we're giving young footballers chances to play at a high level all over Europe, all over the world, and also big money moves involved in that. So Maffeo this week has gone to Stuttgart, and we had Unal. So that's proof that system works. So we're producing very good footballers who may not be good enough for a 100-point Premier League champions, but are, at a very high level.
And this is the point. I think this is the important thing, Chris, that we have to emphasize here. When you invest in an academy like the one we've invested in, obviously our aspiration is to produce players for Manchester City and the first team. But at the end of the day, there are many players that are going to be coming out of that system. Not everyone is going to make it. The aspiration is that you will be producing players at a certain quality that even if they do not make it at Manchester City, they are going to make it at a high level in different leagues within Europe and within the world, and they will be able to bring in an attractive investment return for the club to support the continuous development of the academy and of the first team.
And of course, the way we structure deals these days, it's very smart. There's always or nearly always a buyback clause or a first refusal clause, which is...
So we've learned, again, this is an iteration process, Chris. Over the years, we've learned many lessons about that, and I think now we have a much better understanding of what works best for us. Today, there are points where you're better off selling a player than continuously loaning them out. That produces a better outcome for both the player, by the way, and the club. At the same time, being intelligent in terms of how we structure these transactions, where we are selling the players, we have a clear buyback if the player performs to a certain level and becomes suitable for Manchester City. So we are a lot more, I would say, intelligent now in terms of how we structure and how we develop and how we buy and how we sell.
And of course, City have bought and sold from sister clubs, members of the CFG group. If we could just talk about those teams for a short while. New York City, what's 17th to 4th to 2nd in 3 seasons. How's that progressing?
It's progressing exactly as you just described it. I mean, from 17 to 4 to 2, it is always a step forward.
There's only one way to go now.
There is only one way to go, and that's always the one way to go in everything we do. I mean, we are developing teams and organizations with a view to win any competition we participate in. New York has been developed with a view to try to win the MLS. And under Patrick Vieira, we've made some solid progress over the last couple of years. And I would say we're very optimistic this year. We're off to a very strong start, and hopefully this year we'll be able to compete and maybe win the MLS.
You mentioned Patrick there. How do you think he's progressed as a coach through your eyes over the last 3 seasons?
I'm very proud of Patrick. Patrick, I remember the days when he played for us in Manchester City. He had that one season with us. I respected him as a player very much. We've had a great friendship since then. He started coaching at the academy at Manchester. He started coaching our under-19s and really developed and evolved. And we, as an organization, stood by him and supported him. And when he was ready to take on the next challenge, New York presented itself. He stepped in and he's again started his journey into first team coaching. He's done well. And I really have a strong belief that Patrick is going to be a great manager. And I hope he will continue to be part of this group, and he has my commitment, really always. But you look back at Melbourne also, we talked about New York a bit, but Melbourne the same. I mean, it's been progress after progress. We achieved our best result this season in terms of standing. So the team continues to evolve. The team continues to grow. We're getting closer to winning the A-League. And this year was a good season. I think we were unlucky with injuries and some results not going our way, but we nevertheless improved from the previous season. And I have a lot of confidence that with the manager we have and with the team we have right now, next year will be a better season.
I was going to come back to Melbourne slightly later, but I've just got a couple more New York City questions
absolutely.
first. So whenever I meet anyone from New York City or a New York City fan, the thing they always ask is, when's the stadium coming? Are we ever going to get a stadium of our own? Is there anything we can tell anyone about that?
Well, building a stadium in New York is quite an interesting feat.
I can imagine.
That is one of the biggest challenges I have faced professionally. It is a very hard thing to do. We are making progress. I'm confident that we are on the right track. We intend to build a stadium, certainly. That's always been the intention from day one. And that organization needs to have its stadium, not just for the fans, but from a commercial perspective.
Of course, we already know an academy that's been opened this year. You managed to build the academy there. The third academy we now have in the world after Manchester and Melbourne. What did you learn from building those two when New York was being built, and how happy are you with the finished product?
Well, we know how to do this now. This has been, our ability to build these academies, both not just in the physical infrastructure, but the human infrastructure, the personnel, the people that need to run these academies, to operate them. We know how to do this, and we know how to do this very well. We've done it in Manchester, we've done it in Melbourne, we're doing it today in New York, and it helps. Really, I mean, when you have someone like Brian Marwood running all this operation, he needs the infrastructure, he needs the organization to support that, and Brian has been again an instrumental part of the success of this City Football Group story, and an instrumental part in building and putting these academies together from Melbourne to New York. So I think we have the right leadership team, we have the right approach. And we will see, as we have seen in the past, success coming out of these academies.
And down in Melbourne, we touched on it before, the youth team there is producing players for the first team. So Nathaniel Atkinson and Daniel Arzani, I think I've pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
Both broken through this season. How proud are you of?
Very proud. These two players have been outstanding this year. Arzani is becoming really one of the most talked about players out of the A-League, full stop. So I think that shows you we have the academy, we have the infrastructure, and we're giving these players the chances. Both of these players are young players that have been given chances to perform at the highest level at Melbourne City and to compete day in, day out. And they've done that, and hopefully they'll stay and compete and continue to grow within our organization.
And Arzani, of course, been named in the 26 for Australia. That'll be cut to 23 for the World Cup, but fingers crossed he makes it. That'll be quite some achievement.
Absolutely, that will be an incredible achievement, and I wish him all the best. And I'm sure if he does get chosen for that squad, he will do great. And
the women's team in Melbourne, 3 times champions of Australia in succession. How do you see the women's football strategy for CFG across the teams?
It's to the same parameters I said earlier. We have to continue to support these teams. We have to continue to allow them to develop in a footballing sense and to compete from a football perspective and improve. We have to continue to allow the fan base to grow in the respective spaces. I mean, Melbourne is certainly a big success for us in the women's game. And then we have to see and continue to bring in the right sponsors that ultimately will help make this game more and more sustainable.
2 final questions for you now. So one, how pleased have you been with Girona's first season? Quite a remarkable effort in La Liga.
Girona has done an unbelievable job. I mean, truly. You look at the resource, you look at the wage bill that Girona has. They have outperformed admirably. They played some good football. They've been solid. I'm very, very happy for our partnership there in Girona, and very happy with the way this team has developed. And they will stay in La Liga, and they will stay not just as a survivor in La Liga, but as an actual mid-table club in La Liga.
And finally, the question I ask you every year: where next? for CHU. We hear Korea, India, still looking in China. Are those three a possibility?
Chris, we will grow where it makes sense. We have, under the leadership of Farhan, we have a fantastic CEO. We've made the right decisions. We've picked the markets right. And I think moving forward, we'll continue to look at where it makes sense for us to grow.
I look forward to discussing those teams in years to come. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.